in the most isolated nation on Earth, where every whisper carries the weight of suspicion, one man walked freely among soldiers and scientists for 6 years. He built hotels, earned government awards, and became a trusted insider. But secretly, hidden inside a wristwatch was a camera, and the CIA was watching through his eyes. This is the story of Kim Dong-chul, the only American who lived as a spy deep inside North Korea for nearly a decade before everything collapsed in a single moment. Welcome to WhistleForce. Please like the video before starting. There are places on this earth where secrets go to die, where information enters but rarely escapes. And sitting at the top of that list without question is North Korea. For decades, Western intelligence agencies have struggled to see inside this hermit kingdom. Satellites can photograph buildings, but they cannot hear conversations. They can count tanks, but they cannot understand intentions. To truly know what happens inside North Korea, you need someone on the ground. You need human eyes and human ears. And for 6 extraordinary years, the CIA had exactly that, a man named Kim Dong-chul. Kim was born in Seoul, South Korea in 1953. In 1980, he emigrated to the United States, later becoming a Baptist pastor and a naturalized U.S. citizen. He settled in Fairfax, Virginia. His early life in America was unremarkable by most measures. He pursued a career as a Baptist pastor while owning and operating a cleaning business in the Fairfax area of Virginia. He married, raised a family, and by all appearances lived the quiet life of an immigrant who had achieved the American dream. Nothing about his existence in those suburban Virginia neighborhoods suggested he would one day become the most significant American intelligence asset inside North Korea. But something changed around the turn of the millennium. Perhaps it was a spiritual calling. Perhaps it was a longing to reconnect with his Korean roots. Or perhaps it was something deeper, a restlessness that pushed him toward the unknown. In 2000, Kim moved to China with his wife, a Chinese Korean, to work as a missionary. He subsequently applied to enter North Korea, and by 2004 was residing in the Rason Special Economic Zone, where he built a hotel. Now, to understand how remarkable this was, you need to understand what the Rason Special Economic Zone actually is. It's a tiny pocket of semi-capitalism located at the northeastern tip of North Korea, right where the country meets both China and Russia. The North Korean government created it in the 1990s as an experiment, a place where limited foreign investment could happen without infecting the rest of the country with outside ideas. Kim became a trusted insider in North Korea, where from 2001 he ran a hotel in the Rason Special Economic Zone near the China and Russia borders. Kim had moved to Yanji in 2001, from where he commuted daily to Rason. He was president of a company involved in international trade and hotel services. This arrangement was unusual for any foreigner, let alone an American citizen. North Korea is one of the most paranoid nations on Earth, constantly fearful of spies and foreign influence. For them to allow a Korean-American businessman to operate freely within their borders was almost unheard of. Kim leveraged family connections through his wife, an ethnic Korean from China with relatives in North Korea, to gain entry and establish business ties. These ventures positioned him as a recognized foreign investor in the isolated regime's limited market openings. For several years, Kim Dong-chul was simply a businessman. He built relationships. He established trust. He earned awards from North Korean authorities for his contributions to the Special Economic Zone. The regime saw him as exactly what they wanted, a successful overseas Korean who had returned to help develop his ancestral homeland. They had no idea what was coming. According to Kim, he had not been a spy from the beginning. Originally, his intentions were good. He engaged in rescue efforts, erected buildings, and sent auxiliary food and medicine to local organizations. He was, by his own account, genuinely trying to help. But his unique position, an American citizen with deep access to North Korean society, did not go unnoticed by intelligence agencies. In 2009, he was contacted by South Korea's National Intelligence Service, NIS, and later by the CIA. You could do something for your homeland. The information provided by the defectors gives an incomplete picture of the internal situation in North Korea, and you are there and with a high clearance level. Thus, according to Kim, he turned into a proactive intelligence service agent. This moment represents the transformation at the heart of this story. Kim Dong-chul, the missionary and businessman, died in 2009. In his place was born something else, an asset, an antenna, a set of eyes for the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world. In an interview with NK News published on July 29, 2019, Kim admitted that he was spying for the American CIA and South Korean NIS since 2009. Kim said he was asked to behave as an antenna in North Korea. He was tasked with recruiting double agents across the nation, with a specific focus on unearthing information regarding the North's military and nuclear capabilities. The term antenna is important here. He wasn't expected to uncover every secret himself. His job was to position himself as a receiver, collecting signals from multiple sources within the North Korean system and transmitting them outward. His methods leveraged his business presence in the Rason Special Economic Zone to approach cash-strapped North Korean military officers and nuclear scientists for recruitment as informants. This is where Kim's unique advantage came into play. North Korea's economy has been struggling for decades. Sanctions, mismanagement, and isolation have left many government employees, even military officers and scientists, desperately poor. I approached military officers and scientists who I knew needed money, Kim said, showing crooked fingers that he claims were broken by soldiers' boots during his interrogation. The equipment he used sounds like something from a spy movie, but it was all real. Kim described how he filmed footage with a watch equipped with a camera and used electromagnetic wave wiretapping equipment. Kim claims he sought out nuclear secrets and used a concealed wristwatch camera. A wristwatch with a hidden camera, electromagnetic wiretapping devices. These were the tools of his trade, small, concealable, and effective. Kim's intelligence gathering targeted North Korea's nuclear program, military capabilities, and regime operations, with a focus on procuring details that supplemented satellite imagery limitations. He obtained close-up photographs of a suspicious vessel at Rajan Port, providing higher resolution than available via U.S. satellite reconnaissance, and acquired data on arms programs including high-purity materials used in weapons technology. What Kim provided was invaluable precisely because satellites cannot do everything. They can show you that a ship exists, they can show you where it's docked, but they cannot tell you what's inside the ship, what it's being used for, or what conversations are happening around it. These efforts yielded what Kim described as very significant information on North Korea's military and nuclear activities, shared with both the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and South Korea's National Intelligence Service. For 6 years, this arrangement continued. 6 years of photographing sensitive sites. 6 years of meeting with informants. 6 years of transmitting secrets to handlers across the border in China. The information flowed from the heart of North Korea to intelligence desks in Washington and Seoul. And somehow, against all odds, Kim remained undetected. But espionage is a game where even the smallest mistake can be fatal. And in 2014, the first warning signs appeared. In 2014, the first bell rang. The Workers' Party City Committee pulled down the fence around his hotel and began to inspect his activities more closely. North Korean authorities were becoming suspicious. Perhaps someone had talked, perhaps a pattern had been noticed. Whatever the reason, Kim was now being watched. Kim flared up, publicly condemned this action and the local authorities, and threatened to commit suicide before the nearest statues of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il if the problem was not solved on an impartial basis. Naturally, after that, the authorities tackled him even harder. This reaction, aggressive, defiant, almost theatrical, was perhaps Kim's attempt to maintain his cover through bluster. An innocent businessman would protest unfair treatment, but the damage was done. The microscope was now firmly fixed on him. The end came on October 2, 2015. His last mission was to investigate a suspicious vessel at the Rajan port, identified as of interest to the CIA after being spotted on satellite images. The agency asked Kim to take very close-up photos of it and figure out what it was being used for. As he was leaving his residence, Kim was surprised to encounter one of his agents who knocked at the door of his car. The agent had an important assignment. The CIA had found a suspicious vessel in the Rajan port by means of satellite pictures and assigned Kim to take close-distance pictures of it and to find out what it is used for. And thus the person entrusted with it openly contacts him and almost publicly gives him a USB and other required materials. Kim managed to transmit the information to his masters, but felt that he was a sitting duck. However, as soon as he left the gate, the Rasan counterintelligence head got in his car and kindly asked him to go to the nearby hotel where the businessman was arrested. In that moment, everything Kim Dong-chul had built over 15 years collapsed. The businessman identity, the trusted insider status, the awards and recognition, all of it was gone. North Korean authorities said he was found with a USB stick containing military and nuclear secrets when he was detained in Rasan. In October 2015, Kim was arrested during the meeting with his informant where he received a flash stick on which information on the military facilities of the country was stored. The informant, a former North Korean soldier, was also arrested. Kim never learned what happened to him. What followed was the nightmare that every spy fears most: interrogation by a hostile intelligence service. Kim Dong-chul was interrogated for a month in Rasan and 6 more months in Pyongyang. According to him, he was tortured in unusual ways and at least 8 times was waterboarded. Following his arrest in October 2015 in Rasan, Kim Dong-chul was transferred to a detention facility in Pyongyang, where he endured prolonged interrogations characterized by physical abuse. Interrogators subjected him to repeated beatings and water torture, pouring water over his face while bound, particularly when his statements were inconsistent. These methods were employed to extract details of alleged spy networks, contributing to severe physical and psychological strain. Kim detailed how his mental state and physical health quickly deteriorated under the pressure of torture and then forced labor. "I became a traitor overnight and was locked up in a forced labor camp," he said. "I hit rock bottom." Kim contemplated suicide, but could not carry it out as he was under continuous surveillance. As a result, he was forced to betray all the agents he knew, including 6 high-ranking representatives of special services. The weight of this detail is difficult to fully comprehend. Under torture, Kim gave up the names of other spies, other people who had trusted him, other people who had risked their lives to provide information. What happened to them remains unknown, but in North Korea, the punishment for espionage is usually death, often extended to the spy's entire family. The coercive environment culminated in a staged public confession on March 25, 2016, organized by North Korean authorities, during which Kim admitted to espionage activities, including stealing military secrets for South Korean and U.S. intelligence agencies. This admission, broadcast on state media, followed months of isolation and torture, with no access to legal representation or family. As tensions on the Korean peninsula continued to rise, officials in Pyongyang gave CNN exclusive access to a man North Korea claims is a U.S. citizen arrested on espionage charges. Speaking to CNN's Will Ripley, the man identified himself as Kim Dong-chul, a naturalized American who said he used to live in Fairfax, Virginia. "I'm asking the U.S. or South Korean government to rescue me," Kim said during an interview at a hotel in the North Korean capital. Kim, 62, was frog-marched into the room by stony-faced guards, who insisted that the interview be conducted in Korean, through an official translator. This televised appearance was classic North Korean propaganda, forcing a prisoner to confess and plead for help, demonstrating to the world their power over a captured enemy. Kim's arrest and captivity, according to Russell Goldman of the New York Times, followed a pattern also seen with other detentions of U.S. nationals by North Korea, a forced confession, a show trial, a sentence to years of hard labor with little chance of appeal. The legal proceedings occurred in a one-day trial before the North Korean Supreme Court in Pyongyang on April 29, 2016. Following his detention since October 2015, no independent observers, defense counsel, or detailed public records of evidence presentation were permitted, rendering the process non-transparent. The North Korean Supreme Court handed down a 10-year sentence for Kim Dong-chul on charges of espionage. 10 years of hard labor. For a man already in his 60s, this was essentially a death sentence. As prisoner number 429, Kim endured 31 months of imprisonment involving torture, forced labor in a prison camp, and severe health deterioration, including chronic pain from beatings and exposure to toxic gas. Kim was beaten repeatedly and tortured in other ways as North Korean agents sought to uncover possible networks of fellow spies and double agents. The abuse left him partially paralyzed and even drove him to attempt suicide. Number 429, "You're destined to live a long life," the guards told Kim when he woke up on the ground in freezing water 2 days after being poisoned by briquette gas in a North Korean prison. He had nearly died from the toxic fumes, but somehow survived. Meanwhile, the world outside continued turning. In America, a new president took office in January 2017. Donald Trump's approach to North Korea would prove dramatically different from his predecessors. Where Obama had practiced strategic patience, Trump oscillated between threats of fire and fury and offers of direct negotiation. And caught in the middle of this geopolitical chess game were American prisoners in North Korea, including Kim Dong-chul. Kim was detained the longest of the three, having spent at least 900 days in custody. 900 days, nearly 2.5 years in conditions that would break most people. The diplomatic situation began shifting in early 2018. Tensions began to ease, coinciding with North Korea's participation in the Winter Olympics in South Korea in February 2018. The images of North and South Korean athletes marching together under a unified flag were broadcast around the world. Something was changing. The negotiations for Kim Dong-chul's release occurred amid heightened U.S.-North Korea diplomatic engagement in 2018. Following the Inter-Korean Summit in April, and aimed at facilitating direct talks between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo conducted preparatory discussions during his March 2018 visit to Pyongyang, where the issue of detained Americans was raised, though no immediate releases followed. Final negotiations intensified during Pompeo's second trip to Pyongyang on May 2018, entering the concluding stages for securing the freedom of 3 detained U.S. citizens, including Kim Dong-chul. Pompeo met directly with Kim Jong-un during this 13-hour visit to broker the arrangement. About an hour before Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's plane took off from the North Korean capital Wednesday night, 3 Americans, Kim Hak-song, Tony Kim, and Kim Dong-chul, were given back their freedom. Their release following more than a year in the country's secretive prisons marked a significant diplomatic détente as Pompeo lays the groundwork for a forthcoming summit between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The 3 detainees walked unaided from a van onto Pompeo's aircraft at Pyongyang's airport, marking their departure from North Korea after detentions lasting between 1 and 2.5 years. The group flew directly to the United States, arriving at Joint Base Andrews, Maryland, aboard a U.S. Air Force C-32 aircraft at approximately 2:00 a.m. EDT on May 10, 2018. President Donald Trump greeted them upon landing, describing the release as a wonderful thing and a positive signal ahead of his planned summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Speaking to the media on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews Air Force Base, Kim Dong-chul said his release felt like a dream. "I was treated in many different ways. But overall, I had to do much labor, and when I became ill, I received some treatment," Kim Dong-chul said via a translator. The trio thanked Trump and other officials for bringing them home. "We thank God and all our families and friends who prayed for us and for our return," they said in a statement released as their plane stopped over in Alaska. The 3 men, alongside Pompeo, landed at Andrews Air Force Base shortly before 3 a.m. Eastern on May 10, thereby concluding a 17-month struggle by the Trump administration to secure their release. Kim Dong-chul, appearing frail but mobile, gestured to supporters and media as he exited the plane. In the hours following their arrival, the released Americans underwent medical evaluations and debriefings. At that time, Trump proudly declared, "We got our hostages back," but the story didn't end there. In July 2019, over a year after his release, Kim Dong-chul gave his first extended interview to NK News, an English-language publication focused on North Korea. And in that interview, he confirmed what North Korea had always claimed, that he really had been a spy. Speaking with NK News, Kim Dong-chul said he spied for the CIA for around 6 years before being caught and sent to a labor camp, where he suffered torture at the hands of his North Korean guards. Kim stated he used concealed cameras to photograph sensitive sites and bribed officials for documents, acknowledging these actions as espionage despite initial humanitarian intentions. In a subsequent memoir and media appearances, Kim reiterated that his North Korean confession, broadcast in March 2016, was truthful, distinguishing it from coerced admissions by other detainees. This admission was extraordinary. Most former prisoners from North Korea claim their confessions were entirely fabricated under duress. Kim Dong-chul was saying the opposite, that he really had done what North Korea accused him of doing. The confession wasn't a lie, he was a spy. The U.S. Department of State, the CIA, and the South Korean National Intelligence Service, NIS, refused to comment on what Kim said. This silence speaks volumes. Intelligence agencies never confirm operations, especially not ones that resulted in a blown cover and the potential compromise of other assets. And here is where we arrive at the most difficult part of this story, the question of what it all meant. Kim Dong-chul gathered intelligence for 6 years. He photographed ships, recruited informants, transmitted data on North Korea's nuclear program. By his own account, this information was very significant. But what was the cost? He spent 31 months being tortured. His body was broken, fingers crooked from beatings, partially paralyzed from abuse. He was poisoned and nearly died. He was forced to give up the names of other spies, people who trusted him, whose fates remain unknown but almost certainly tragic. And North Korea's nuclear program, it continued. The missiles kept flying. The bombs kept being built. Whatever information Kim provided, it did not stop what everyone was trying to stop. Was it worth it? That's not a question anyone can answer except Kim Dong-chul himself. And perhaps even he doesn't know. What we do know is that he survived. Against all odds, against the weight of North Korea's entire security apparatus, against torture and hard labor and gas poisoning and despair, he survived. He walked off that plane at Andrews Air Force Base in the early morning darkness of May 10, 2018, a free man. Kim's son, Saul Kim, told CBS News he was stunned by his father's detention. I asked myself why, what happened, what is the reason. Lots of different thoughts went through my head. Will I see him again? He said. Part of me really thought he did not do anything wrong. He won't be held very long. The son did not know what his father had been doing. The family did not know. For years, Kim Dong-chul had lived a double life so complete that even those closest to him had no idea what he really was. That is perhaps the loneliest aspect of being a spy. You cannot tell anyone. Not your wife, not your children, not your friends. You carry the weight of secrets that could get people killed, and you carry it alone. For 6 years, Kim Dong-chul walked through the most secretive country on earth with a hidden camera on his wrist and informants depending on his discretion. When he was finally caught, he faced that nightmare alone as well. There is no Hollywood ending to this story. Kim Dong-chul was not some superhero who escaped in a blaze of glory. He was caught, broken, and eventually released as a bargaining chip in the larger game between nations. The information he gathered may have helped intelligence analysts understand North Korea slightly better, or it may have simply confirmed what they already suspected. We will likely never know. But this much is true. For 6 years, one ordinary man, a former pastor, a cleaning business owner, an immigrant from South Korea, did something that almost no one else has ever done. He looked inside the black box of North Korea and transmitted what he saw to the outside world. He did it knowing that if he was caught, there would be no rescue, no extraction team, no dramatic escape. If he was caught, he would be alone. And when that moment came, when the counterintelligence officer got into his car and kindly asked him to come to the hotel, Kim Dong-chul learned what it truly meant to be a spy in the world's most dangerous country. He had chosen this path. In 2009, when the CIA asked if he could do something for his homeland, he said yes. That single word changed everything. It transformed him from a humanitarian businessman into an intelligence asset. It gave him purpose and meaning beyond anything he had known. And it ultimately led him to a North Korean labor camp, to prisoner number 429, to the edge of death itself. In the end, Kim Dong-chul came home. He is alive. He carries the scars, both visible and invisible, of what he endured. But he carries something else too, the knowledge that he tried. In a world where most people never take risks, never put themselves in danger for something larger than themselves, he did. Right or wrong, successful or failed, he looked into the darkness and tried to bring back the truth. And sometimes that's all any of us can do.